Most ETF investors don't struggle because they pick the wrong fund. Basically what they do is they pick something they can't stick with and it's overcomplicated, then they give up and then they do something else. The truth is you need less, but you also need a strategy, a plan. What type of investor are you is the first question. In this video, I'm going to talk about 3 very distinct strategies that could be governed by your age or personality. You may not like risk. Some people don't. 1 for simplicity, 1 for growth, and 1 for the elderly slash, oh, I don't want that much risk, with a bit of a split. Because yes, if you like 20% drops every now and again, well, that's for you, but it might not be for the next person sitting next to you. So just be mindful of that kind of preference. I'm also going to showcase how £100, £250, £500 per month in each type of fund, in a way, will perform. And yes, I know I'm quite boring, but I do like income from good quality businesses. But I'm not going to talk specifically about that. I want to do different ones today. But one thing I want to say, and I want you to remember, the portfolio that may well give you the best results might not actually make you the most wealthy. But let's talk about the complexity problem of, you could argue, ETFs in 2026 and going forward from now. There's thousands of them. Maybe 10 years ago, 20 years ago, there's a lot less. There's a lot more ETFs now that are around. Most people look at them from performance point of view instead of diversification. That is where people trip themselves up. They want to try and beat the market, and you want to kind of be in the market realistically. Trying to beat the stock market is kind of where I say people fall down. But holding several ETFs is a drum that I often talk about. Isn't diversification. I talk about this a lot on my free ETF overlap tool, which I will showcase in a bit. But ultimately, as I say to a lot of people, sometimes having less is better. Because those several ETFs may well hold the same sectors or the same companies many times over. Yes, you can do 3 or 4 ETFs and have 0 overlap, and that's totally fine. But sometimes you need to look at that in a bit more detail, because when you start going over that, you're going to get sector problems. And like I say, if the financial sector goes, and collapses, you're going to get hit quite hard if you're only in those sort of ETFs. The objective of this is not to find the perfect spread or the perfect ETF. It's about having a plan, being consistent with that plan over a period of time. Me though, I personally like to hold individual stocks. I like to hold a trust fund and 2 ETFs. That is my kind of game. I do, however, have a new portfolio that I'm building right now, which is more around the growth sector, which I will come on to in a bit. But one thing I want to finish on, if you are following many, many different content creators, which is fine, don't fall down the rabbit hole of the clout, of people trying to get rich and famous through crazy methodology and growth metrics. Sometimes slow, boring wins the race, especially in finance. So just be mindful of that one. Now on the screen is Trading 212. Personally, I don't really rate it. I never have. Don't really recommend it for people. Personally, I just think it's a bit complicated. Now, big issue you have with it, and with every ETF situation, and you can see stocks here, most traded, it's always the same things, right? So when we go over and look down at ETFs down here, most popular ETFs, the problem that people have, there's far too much choice. And always as well, they're always the same ones. Honestly, I get emails all the time. Feel free if you want to comment or email, crack on, it's fine. But people do buy the same things over and over again just because they don't realize what they're buying. That's where the problem lies with a lot of these ETF kind of comparisons. So you can see there's the S&P 500 a few times. Developed markets. So what are the you need to understand what the differences are. So let me showcase something for you. When I first started this channel, right? So long story short, and I'll showcase this, I asked a very simple question very early on. What do people struggle with? And a lot of people messaged me and said, research. So I built a research tool that's free, totally free to use. You can jump in on the link below in the free membership. Now, it's created an overlap checker in here. But the situation is very, very clear. You need to understand your plan first. And I've talked about this. What type of investor are you? So when we're talking about research, you need to compare what is correct. Now, as you can imagine with the All World Fund, for example, right? You know very, very clearly, and by the way, this fee will change very, very soon. I think it's about to change very, very soon. Now, with the situation around the world of ETFs, what does it track? What countries? Is it accumulation or is it distributing? What is the annual fee? Here. What is the size of it? Is it well established? You get the idea, right? But people don't really do that. So when we scroll down, you can see quite clearly the information, the data, all the stuff, as well as the technology side of it, what it holds, very, very simply, right? The problem, as I say, is past performance information can be very, very useful, but sometimes people just try and really bait into that. Yes, the All World Fund has outperformed the S&P 500 over the last 12 months. That's great. Well done. But can it forever? Probably not, no. But ultimately as well, when we talk about the S&P 500 and talk about the All World Fund, for example, it's got the same top 10 pretty much. So the situations around that is why the performance has been doing well. So just be mindful of the overlap. Like your overlap, you just go onto it and you put in whatever you want. So for me, if you want to put in, say, the S&P 500, you put in the All World Fund. Let's just see what the overlap is. Well, you can see there's a bit of an overlap there. You can see there's quite a few that are holding into it, the largest weight, and they're all kind of the same. 440 are repeated holdings. What is the point of buying the two? You might as well just buy the one, right? For example. So that becomes a bit of an issue when we talk about the different ones. And that's just one side of it. So there's a 60% overlap on just two there alone. And people like to pair these together. So yeah, it's great in a bull market, don't get me wrong, and you could make a bit more money, but we'd not rather put more money into one and then have something a bit different. Let's get into it. Because the first strategy here on the screen is global. 100% one ETF, broad global diversification. One investment, thousands of companies. That's it. Simply that. For a lot of people, this is perfect. This is not trying to beat the market. It's not trying to chase the gains. It's just being in one place at one time and being consistent with it. It works. Accumulation funds will automatically reinvest the income. That's great. They're extremely easy to do it. They are beginner friendly. They're great for long-term investors. And on my screener here, just press global. It'll give you a few. I've already showcased one here. You got the distribution fund here, right? There's other ones out there across this, this entire fund. You got ones that are paying more dividends, which is one that I actually hold. It is a global fund though. It's entirely up to you, of course, not financial advice. But what I'm saying here is allow this to do the heavy lifting. Yes, there's developed markets. Yes, there's other bits. But when you're thinking global, it is going to do a lot of the lifting for you, which is hugely important. So there's many different ones. You can look at each one. So for example, here, the X Tracker one, not as big in terms of the fund size versus say some of the others out there. But again, it is the all world sort of vibe. Again, good performance. As you can see, low income, but it's got a bit more volatility. It's got a bit of a drop situation, but again, you can see here, 70% America, kind of, technology side of it. They're holding all the same sort of stuff. So just be mindful. Just be mindful of what you buy in. But the big problem you have with a lot of these funds is they can be quite heavy US. And that's the one thing that puts people off. However, the one thing that I will say about that is America currently is the biggest market. It's where the most money is. So it's always going to be that side. So just be mindful of getting caught up in the emotions of that. I get it. But technology is doing well. AI is doing well. America's doing well. Sometimes you just can't avoid it. This is why sometimes people go with a global fund and then maybe add a little bit of sprinkle of a satellite somewhere else just to kind of add a bit more diversification. For example, a European fund, the emerging markets as an example. Next one is growth. People love growth, right? So for me, an allocation would be probably about 60 to 70% global core, right? The remaining will be split between one or two tilts, growth, essentially. So you could, as you can imagine on the screen here, it's entirely up to you, go to the filters. You may want something, say, emerging markets, as an example. You've also got small caps as well, which you could look at too. Or you can look at Europe, technology, whatever it may be. It's entirely up to you. Semiconductors, as an example, right? Because some of these have actually done fantastically well. Again, don't just look at past performance, but you get the idea. It's all about having a bit of a mix. Now, one that I like the look of and personally looking to do myself is having, say, a bit of a mix of, say, global market funds. Then you've got the small caps, cool. And then you've got, say, emerging markets. You could have three like that and they have very, very little overlap because emerging markets is a different side of it. The small caps are not going to be the big global funds anyways, because they're going to be the future, big companies. And then you've obviously got the global one, which will handle the volatility and all the mess. So there's a mixture. But often you can find that with each sector, there's going to be different growth factors. As you can imagine, as I say, AI, big data, semiconductors, as an example. But going back to the point of don't try and beat the market, be the market, be in the market, be in the right things at the right times if you can. But don't try and beat the market. Don't be too clever. Because yes, some people can go all in on semiconductors, but what about if it collapses? A couple of weeks ago, some stocks, as you can imagine, went down 40, 50% in a couple of weeks. You don't want to be on the wrong side of it. But adding a growth tilt doesn't mean you're going to get richer faster. A small cap emerging market, as you can imagine, they may underperform for years. Look at what gold did for 5 years. It did nothing and then boom, it shot up. So you may find that sometimes it might be better off just being in a bit more of a simple portfolio, which is why I say to people, always have a global ETF as your core to kind of do the work for you. And then you have other little side shoots that could perform better. Now, the final one we need to talk about is, again, simple sort of approach, but adding bonds to it realistically. But on the screen, as you can see, bonds. These are designed for income, basically. But the performance can be a little bit ropey, so just be very, very mindful. Now, this is why I always say to people, always have the equity side of it as well, because it will sometimes perform better than these. But you're never going to get the amount of income up to 5-6% on some of these as well. It obviously depends on you. The returns are likely to be lower. You are going to get more income. That's a good thing. And it is more steady. And yeah, you can have a good situation in these for a long, long time and they're fine. But you have to be very, very mindful of the economic climate that we are in. I'll give you an example. If you look at the UK version, well, I'll just give you an example, proper example. You know what I mean? Like, so when we look at like how during COVID, these just dropped, there was a reason for that. Don't get me wrong. You're going to get out 4.47% yield, which is pretty good. But overall, the performance hasn't been great, bruv. So you're not going to be beating inflation at any point in this, but it is designed to hopefully make things better. So you can see on these pies here, they're designed to kind of help you do okay as an older gentleman, essentially, or a female. But at the end of the day, it just ultimately depends on what you're looking for. Everyone's looking for different things, right? So when we talk about a mix, for example, with the likes of bonds, stuff like that, it is going to shift to a more of an income-based portfolio. But this, as a clarification, is not what you put your emergency fund in. No, you definitely do not. It is not your house money neither. Investing is still investing, but this does reduce the world of volatility for a lot of people who just want to go with the world of income. But going back to my website, if you go to start here, there is an investment calculator. Let's showcase some of the returns, because the one ingredient that I mentioned right at the start of this video, feel free to like this video if you're enjoying it, by the way, just saying, and obviously subscribe, but time is king. Strategy with time is the best medicine. Because if we're going to go for an annualized growth rate on a growth portfolio for 10% with 30 years investing 100 quid every single month, it's going to grow over time. But over time is where people get bored. After 10, 11 years, you probably feel like you're treading water. Then all of a sudden it starts to grow. That's the compound effect happening. But the situation is very clear. You can make a lot of money off very, very low inputs, which is kind of the whole point with time. But if I change this again and just plonk up, say, 250 quid, it's going to get pretty aggressive. But we're never going to really sustain this 10%, are we? That's the problem that people fall into. This will be dynamic. It will change all the time. So just be mindful of that. This is why I always say go for roughly 8 or 7% these days. But the problem you have is people go all in thinking, this is amazing. Oh, we're going to make loads of money. Doesn't always work out. You've also got to look at dividend yield. This might not be as high for some people. It might be 1%. It might be 2%. It might be 0%. It might be much, much higher. It will depend. But the one thing that happens in every single portfolio simulation you look at, time. You need to be consistent with your strategy and your deposits. By the way, if you're really going to go how many you've made it Billy Big Bollocks and you want to make loads of money, well, yeah, you can look at that side of it. But what about if you're going to go for a decent growing yield portfolio? You might actually find that you're doing pretty damn well very, very quickly, but it will start to compound over the course of time. It would be great to be in a situation where you can put more money in and your dividend income, for example, will, become magic. But at the end of the day, though, what if you got £1,000,000 and you go to bonds and you're going to get 4% on that? It's going to be all right. You can survive, but you need to get there first. By the way, when people talk to me about, I say talk to me, people argue with me, don't reinvest dividends, it's pointless. You've got to do it. Always, even if you're in accumulation funds, that's the reason why they do so well. If you're in a distribution fund or if you're in an individual stock or something like that and it is distributing it, don't pay yourself. Literally reinvest it. Allow the magic happen, right? Just remember that, because look at the amount of money that you've made here versus that. Well, it's disgusting. But for me, if I was starting from scratch, genuinely, I would always have a core of a global fund. I still do that today. I think it's the best policy. But there's nothing wrong with having satellites based off what you believe in, what you like, what your interests are. There's so many different ETFs now where you could find that, actually, I like that. I want to jump in that. You don't have to buy individual stocks neither. You can literally get that to do the legwork for you. There's no universal perfect portfolio. It's all personal. It's all what you want to have. But the main thing that you need to get right is having a plan and sticking to that plan and understanding why you're doing it and what your goals are. If you have that set up, it's much, much easier. And if you want to join my community, which I now have a premium Discord, there's a free Discord as well in the free membership. So if you're a free member, go into the settings, jump in the Discord there as well. But jump in, learn how to research. I've also added a new course in here for making more money. So basically a side hustle course. But yeah, there's all kinds of stuff, research tools and stuff. It will make you wealthier by understanding what you're buying, whether it's individual stocks or ETFs. And also, there's a video here that might well help you create an even better portfolio.